In the last video, we walked through Gulhani Park, and in this one, we'll explore the beautiful historic complex of Topkapi Palace. To start off, let's take a stroll down the historic Soğuk Çeşme Street. It is one of the most beautiful and peaceful alleys in Istanbul. Hidden right in the heart of the city, it's tucked away between the walls of Topkapi Palace and the Hagia Sophia. The street is famous for its 12 vibrant 19th century wooden mansions built in a classic Ottoman style, featuring their iconic overhanging bay windows. These charming buildings feature characteristic overhanging upper floors, chumba, wooden facades, and soft pastel colors. Today, these houses serve as luxury boutique hotels. Best of all, the street is completely pedestrianized, with no car traffic allowed. We soon arrive at the square, near the entrance to the Topkapi Palace complex. In the square, you can also see the Fountain of Ahmed III. In front of us stand the Imperial Gate, the main and first entrance to the vast palace. It was built in 1478 during the reign of Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror. Historical paintings show how the gate looked centuries ago, serving as a bustling hub between the Sultan and his people. Originally, it featured a second-floor wooden pavilion used by sultans to watch processions or store treasures. After that pavilion burned down in the 1860s, only this marble balustrade remained, which was eventually removed in 1951. These rare black and white photos perfectly capture how the gateway's silhouette evolved over time, before leading straight into the first court. Today, the Imperial Gate's massive stone walls and stunning gold calligraphy welcome millions of travelers from all over the world. Let's step into the first courtyard, also known as the Court of the Janissaries. In the Ottoman era, this courtyard was open to the public, as long as visitors carried no weapons. Now we head toward the church of Hagia Irene, one of the oldest Byzantine churches in Istanbul. The original structure was built in the 4th century during the reign of Emperor Constantine the Great. Remarkably, it is the only Byzantine church in the city that was never converted into a mosque after the Ottoman conquest. Looking back at this rare shot from the late 1870s, you can actually see ancient marble artifacts and statues scattered near the entrance from its time as the empire's first military museum. By the 1890s, the building stood as a rugged, stoic monument of brick and stone, holding centuries of Roman history within its walls. Here you can see how seamlessly this ancient monument blended into the daily life of late Ottoman Istanbul. The building ceased being a military museum and entered its preservation era. Decades later, close-up photography captured the incredible geometry of its massive dome and tiered windows, which filled the interior with natural light. Today, Hagia Irene stands proudly in the outer courtyard of Topkapi Palace. Now, Hagia Irene functions as a museum. Stepping inside, Hagia Irene instantly hits you with a completely different energy. Unlike other famous monuments in Istanbul, the interior is raw, minimalist, and stripped of later decorations. Instead of a golden portrait of Jesus or Mary, there is just a massive, simple black mosaic cross on a gold background. Much of the decoration was destroyed during the iconoclasm period in the 8th century, and in later centuries, the building was used as an armory. At the time of our visit, the church was undergoing restoration, so visitors could only see the main hall, the nave of the building. We exit the church of Hagia Irene and continue walking through the first courtyard, also known as the Court of the Janissaries. The path is surrounded by greenery, with plenty of signs along the way, so it's almost impossible to get lost. Most visitors naturally head in the same direction, toward the palace. Back in the day, this was the only part of the palace open to the general public. It was a bustling, chaotic square filled with merchants, citizens, foreign dignitaries waiting for audiences, and elite Janissary soldiers guarding the grounds. Soon, we arrive at the Gate of Salutation. This grand entrance was constructed under Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror and later remodeled in the 16th century by Suleiman the Magnificent. As we see in this early engraving, strict court protocol dictated that everyone, except the Sultan, had to dismount their horses before passing through. By the mid-19th century, the gate remained a powerful symbol of Ottoman majesty, beautifully captured here in this detailed watercolor. This historic engraving shows the gate during a momentous and turbulent event, the funeral procession of the deposed Sultan Abdulaziz. With the advent of photography, we get our first realistic glimpse of the gate. This late 19th century photograph captures palace guards standing on the dirt path. This slightly later photograph shows the area beautifully maintained. The palace is right on the brink of the modern era. This early 20th century postcard marks the transition of this forbidden imperial entrance into a global historic landmark. Today, these timeless towers continue to welcome millions of visitors from around the world into the heart of Topkapi Palace.
Topkapi Palace is a vast palace complex in the historic heart of Istanbul. Today, we will explore several important sites within the complex. We begin with the Imperial Council Hall. Next to it stands the Tower of Justice, the tallest structure in the entire palace. The Imperial Council Hall was where the Imperial Council, the governing body of the Ottoman Empire, held its meetings. Here, crucial state decisions were discussed and made. You can also see historical inscriptions marking significant restorations and transitions of power throughout the palace's long history. The hall is also known as Kubealti, meaning under the dome, named after the domed chamber where the council sessions took place. In this painting, we can see a diplomatic reception inside the Imperial Council Hall, where the Grand Vizier dines with a foreign minister. Next, we move on to the Ars Odası, the audience chamber of Topkapi Palace. This pavilion was used by the Sultan to receive high-ranking Ottoman officials, foreign ambassadors, and representatives of other states. The term Ars Odası can be translated as the room of presentation, a place where matters were formally presented to the Sultan. The building is a classic example of Ottoman architectural style, featuring a large portico. Above the entrance, beautiful calligraphic inscriptions highlight the religious and governmental importance of the chamber. Now we continue to the next location, the Seferli Ward, home to the exhibition of imperial clothing. This building is located in the third courtyard. Historically, the Seferli Ward functioned as living quarters for palace staff. Today, it houses an impressive exhibition showcasing the imperial collection of clothing. Here, you can see luxurious kaftans worn by Ottoman sultans and princes. These garments are made from expensive materials and decorated with rich embroidery and gold thread. You can also see talismanic shirts, as well as examples of later Ottoman military uniforms. There are also displays of clothing worn by women of the imperial dynasty and the Sultan's family. Now we continue to the next location, the Fatih Pavilion, home to the Imperial Treasury. This pavilion is one of the richest and most important sections of Topkapi Palace. Today, it houses an extraordinary collection of imperial treasures. Inside, you can see the sword and casket of Sultan Selim I. In this painting, we can see Sultan Selim I riding a white horse and holding a drawn, curved saber known as Zulfikar. There is also a collection of gold amulets and aigrettes. You can see luxurious jeweled ornaments worn on the Sultan's turban, sorguç. The sorguç was one of the main symbols of the Sultan's power and prestige, a kind of equivalent to crowns in Western monarchies. In these paintings, we can see sultans wearing a sorguç on their headdress, a type of aigrette, made versatile by Topkapi jewelers, so the Sultan could easily pin his favorite piece from one turban to another, or even use it to adorn his ceremonial horse's harness. A large display case showcases various items, including jewelry, snuff boxes, and gemstones on the lower level, gold vessels and ceremonial containers, feather fans, and ceremonial brushes. One of the highlights here is the Kaşıkçı Diamond, a pear-shaped 86-carat diamond set in gold and surrounded by 49 smaller diamonds. Another impressive display includes a golden cradle, a golden rattle, and a small ceremonial gold cup. The treasury also contains the golden ceremonial throne, used by sultans during important state ceremonies. This historical painting by Jean-Baptiste Van Moor depicts an Ottoman sultan seated on his ceremonial throne during an official audience at Topkapi Palace. One of the most iconic items here is the Topkapi dagger, often regarded as a symbol of the palace itself. You can also see a richly decorated imperial armor. There are displays of military and ceremonial ammunition, combining symbols of authority and luxury, an essential part of the Ottoman court. Other notable items include a zinc pitcher, pendants from the Prophet's tomb, and the throne and steps of Nader Shah. You can also find various cups and chalices, as well as foreign decorations and jewelry. A precious ceremonial tray, Russian imperial orders, and a jade bowl gifted by Tsar Nicholas II. A beautifully crafted chess set, and several hanging lamps are also on display. Before leaving the pavilion, you can enjoy a beautifully decorated area featuring a marble fountain. From here, there is also a wonderful panoramic view of the Bosphorus and its surroundings. Now we move on to the next location, the Hazine Kohushu, also known as the Dormitory of the Treasury. Originally, this building served as sleeping quarters for the pages. Today, it houses the calligraphy section. Here, you can see outstanding examples of Ottoman calligraphy. Most of the panels are written in a large, decorative style and contain religious or historical inscriptions. The panels demonstrate masterful control of several calligraphic scripts. The most prominent is Jali Thuluth, which was commonly used for large and monumental inscriptions. You can also see Naskh script, a smaller and more readable style, often used for signatures, dates, or additional lines of text. Another key feature of these works is their rich decoration, known as tezhip, or illumination. This is the art of creating elaborate ornamental designs around the calligraphic text, using gold and vivid colors. The next hall is dedicated to Tuğras. A tuğra is the personal calligraphic emblem or monogram of an Ottoman ruler, a sultan, caliph, or khan. It functioned as the official signature and seal of the sultan. Each tuğra was unique to a specific ruler and was not drawn by the sultan himself, but by specially trained court calligraphers. In this section, you can also see beautifully decorated manuscript Qurans. These sacred texts were richly adorned and demonstrate the magnificent art of illumination. Finally, you can also see a calligraphic scroll, completing this remarkable journey through the refined art of Ottoman calligraphy. Now we move on to the next location, the Mecidiye Pavilion. It is located in the fourth courtyard of Topkapi Palace and is the latest building constructed within the palace complex. The Mecidiye Pavilion has a more European layout, divided into several rooms. Inside, you can see a painting depicting the Hünkar sofası. There is also a portrait of Sultan Mahmud II. The pavilion was fully decorated according to the latest European trends introduced to the Ottoman Empire by Sultan Abdülmecid I. There is also a small washroom, and nearby, one of the reception rooms of the pavilion. This room is furnished in the European Empire and Neo-Rococo styles, with rich decoration and elegant furniture. The next room shows a strong Eastern Ottoman influence, often referred to as the Neo-Ottoman style. The following room is the dining hall of the Mecidiye Pavilion. Its style is formal empire, characteristic of European dining rooms of the 19th century. Nearby is the Sultan's study or office, a more private and functional space. Now we arrive at the most magnificent room of the pavilion. The style of this lavish hall can be described as high empire with Rococo elements, also known as Neo-Rococo. It represents the European palace aesthetic that Sultan Abdülmecid I sought to introduce into Topkapi. Next to it is another room with very similar furniture and color patterns, including striped fabrics. Finally, we enter the vestibule, or ceremonial gallery, located directly before the exit of the pavilion. The style of this space can be described as elegant and light Neo-Rococo, featuring floral ceiling paintings, richly gilded mirror frames, and decorative porcelain. Now we move on to the next area, the harem. This is perhaps the most mysterious and intriguing part of Topkapi Palace, a closed city within a city. The harem complex consisted of more than 300 rooms, 9 baths, 2 mosques, and even its own hospital. We will move quickly through some of the most interesting areas of the harem. We begin with the service spaces of the harem, entering the dormitory of the halberdiers with tresses. In the inner courtyard, the walls are covered with famous Iznik tiles, decorated with calligraphic panels. These inscriptions often include verses from the Quran. You can also see a figure representing a servant of the harem. Nearby is the pipe room, where the guards used to rest.
So we continue our path and step into another inner courtyard. This long, narrow stone corridor, well, it's basically the artery of the harem, connecting the Sultan's private quarters with other key parts of the complex. And now we arrive at Perda Kapisi, which actually translates as the curtain gate. Look at these walls. They are just magnificent, covered with famous 16th and 17th century Iznik tiles. Next, we're stepping into the courtyard of the Black Eunuchs. This peaceful area was once the heart of the harem guards' daily lives, serving as both their quarters and the main checkpoint. And right above the doors, you can see delicate inscriptions, verses from the Quran, and poems written to praise the Sultan. It's amazing to think that beyond this very courtyard, no other man was ever allowed to pass, only the Sultan himself and the princes. And right over here is the Kosh. It's one of those rare, special places where we can catch a quiet glimpse of their everyday lives, far away from the grand ceremonial halls of the Sultan. And now, we proceed through the main entrance to the harem, known as Harem Jumla Kapısı. This entrance was under the constant and strict control of the Black Eunuchs. From here, we walk along a long corridor lined with marble counters. Hanging on the walls are huge metal trays, known as sini or tabla. This passage was called the Path of Food Service. Male cooks and porters were strictly forbidden to go beyond this corridor. Now we approach the courtyard of the favorites and concubines. This courtyard is enclosed by buildings that served as a sort of elite dormitory for concubines and favorites. In this area, you can see a museum display of everyday objects used by the women of the harem. Here, you can also see gilded tableware and utensils known as tambak. Nearby, you can observe various hammam-related objects. Adjacent to this space is the bath of the concubines and favorites, a private harem.
And now we arrive at the apartments of the Valide Sultan. These were the private chambers of the mother of the reigning sultan. These apartments formed the geographical and administrative heart of the harem. This painting depicts Valide Sultan, seated regally on a low-slung sofa within her private chambers at the Topkapi Palace. Nearby is the hammam of the Valide Sultan, designed exclusively for her personal use. This bath is considered a masterpiece of Ottoman architecture. The Valide Sultan bathed behind gilded bronze grills, which protected her from potential assassination attempts during bathing. Adjacent to it is the Sultan's hammam. This complex was also designed by Mimar Sinan in the late 16th century. Both hammams share a very similar layout and decoration, as they were connected to the same heating system. The Sultan's hammam is slightly larger than that of the Valide Sultan, although in terms of ornamentation, they are almost identical. Now we enter the Imperial Hall. This was the place where the Sultan received his mother, the Valide Sultan, as well as his wives and children. Festive ceremonies, weddings, and major religious celebrations were held here. The hall is a stunning example of how Ottoman aesthetics evolved over centuries. Its architecture reflects a mix of classical 16th century style and 18th century Baroque influences. The walls are decorated with the famous Iznik tiles, and just below the dome runs a continuous calligraphic band with quotations from the Quran. This painting depicts an official gathering within the lavishly decorated Imperial Hall of the Topkapi Palace harem, where the Sultan is seated on his throne, receiving his mother, the Valide Sultan. Next to the Imperial Hall is the private chamber of Sultan Murad III. This was the most secluded part of the Sultan's residence, intended for prayer, reflection, and meetings with a very limited inner circle. The walls of this room are completely covered from floor to ceiling. This painting captures Sultan Murad III relaxing in his private chamber. Adjacent to this room is the private chamber of Sultan Ahmed I, directly connected to the apartments of Murad III. This space is often referred to as a library or reading cabinet, as the Sultan used it as a personal retreat for prayer, reading, and working with books. An Orientalist-style painting illustrating Sultan Ahmed I relaxing on a low divan in his private chamber. Now we approach a place known as the Golden Path. This corridor was the main artery of the harem, connecting the Sultan's private chambers with the apartments of the Valide Sultan. This passage was not simply a corridor. It symbolized the boundary between the official life of the ruler and his most private world. Along the Golden Path, we also encounter the Kushhani kitchen. This kitchen was used exclusively for preparing meals for the Sultan and the highest-ranking members of his family. Continuing forward, we step into the Mabeyn courtyard. This paved courtyard served as an important open space for the women of the harem. And with that, our Topkapi adventure concludes. Thank you for your time, and safe travels until we meet again.